Today I want to get real about that moment when you finish something you've created, be it a project, a podcast, an email, and instead of feeling proud of it, your first thought is, oh, this isn't good enough. I felt that just yesterday after I recorded a podcast episode when my brain started to spiral and overthinking every word, and I almost killed the episode that I have uploaded and will publish later today. And today I share with you why that post-creation discomfort happens and why it's actually a sign of your growth. I also will help you differentiate between your intuition or when it's your inner critic speaking, because often the line is not very clear. And I also will go into why publishing imperfect work is often the fastest way to get to excellence. So if you've ever doubted your work or yourself, this episode is for you. And without further ado, let's hop into today's episode. Okay, so today I'm recording this podcast because I have something more vulnerable to share, and I would like to let you in on the journey, how it is if you start to create, if you are putting yourself out there into public, be it with a project at work, or in my case, recording podcasts. And I thought that would be such a great episode to record, especially because the discomfort of that specific topic that I want to dive into is not that long ago. I actually had that for the past 24 hours, decided to do what I thought I wouldn't do. And while that feeling of discomfort is still fresh, I thought, why not share that with you? So, having prefaced that, do you know that moment when you are finishing something, whatever that is, but it is something that goes public. So it's not just a painting project that you decide to just keep for yourself. It's something that you share with the public. And instead of feeling proud when you completed it, your first thought is, oh, I don't think that is good enough. I don't think it's worth sharing. Oh my God, I made many mistakes. I would love to redo it, or should I redo it? And you start to spiral, question yourself, overthink, and that is exactly what happened for me in the past 24 hours. So what happened? I have recorded an episode yesterday, a topic that is dear to my heart, and I was like, yeah, let's go. I love the topic. And it's also something so relatable, and I think it's something that you definitely will find interesting tuning into. And the second I finished the episode, I started to spiral. I was like, well, that ending sucked. Wow, that whole content wasn't clear enough. Oh my God, I rambled too much. And I should have brought in statistics to prove the point why I think so and so. And it's so wild how fast our brains can go from, oh my God, I'm excited to do this, and it's amazing, and it will be life-changing or exceptionally good, than to go to, gosh, that is garbage. And this is what our conversation will be about, because I am pretty sure you have been in that spot, and that is the whole conversation today. That messy in between for every professional, every creator, or for every human out there, when what you made does not feel good enough and you have to decide if you're still going public with it or hit publish, in that case with me and my podcast. So the first part is the creative discomfort that I want to dive into. And I have looked into some statistics, and Adobe Creative Study says that 90% of creators say they feel dissatisfied with their work right after finishing it. So, and creator is basically everyone. I'm pretty sure you, even some of us call ourselves not creative, I'm pretty sure you're also creating on a daily basis or weekly basis. Even if you, let's say you are a yoga instructor, even that can fall into that category. And this dissatisfaction with the work right after finishing, that is a sign, obviously, not that your creation is bad. It is more or less that sign that you have already evolved in that specific moment you created your piece of art. Because for me, piece of art, by the way, is not a wall painting. It's not something you build with your hands. For me, piece of art is any kind of content that I publish. I just want to be clear, because I always thought art is something that is just for creatives, like painters and stuff like that. I was always very much in that thinking. So, and now I want you to think about it. When you are in the flow of your creation, you're focusing on getting the idea out. You are putting in the effort, you do the work, you express yourself, you make that work more you. Then obviously what we call that is you're in creation mode. You are fully immersed. That's when you're in flow state. Even if you have your ups and downs or put that project on hold for some time, it's still you in the creation. But then what can happen either in between the project or when you complete it? So I'm pretty sure you also have that while you are working on something. So the second you step back, you kind of reflect on it. You review what you have done so far. Your brain has shifted and you have gained distance. You gained more perspective because you are not about to start. You have started already or have completed the project. So you have gained an awareness, a new perspective. So you see things you didn't notice while in the moment. And that could be, for example, in my way how I content create is, for example, when I send an email, when I put a TikTok out there, or obviously on a podcast. Maybe there was a phrasing I used, or maybe a key point I rambled on for too long. Or I would have loved to have expanded on a key message, and I didn't. Maybe I fall short somewhere. Or the flow itself could be smoother. And that shows when you go into this reflection and see that, oh, I could have done this and that better. This is not because, listen, it's very important that your creation is bad. It's just that your standard has shifted. Because every time you are in the creation, every time you do something, you learn more. And obviously, we always go back and reflect. And in hindsight, we have so much more awareness and so much more new information how we could have done things better. And that is where we usually fall off the bandwagon. And I absolutely been there just yesterday and early today. And before I go into that, I want to just tell you, you have grown here. It is not that what you put out there is bad. You have just grown. And for me, that shift in perspective helped me to see, wow, great, that's true. It's not like, usually I go into, oh, that was bad, that wasn't good enough, I rambled too much. But actually, when I reframe and see it from, I have grown, I have a new awareness perspective, I feel so much more expansive. I go more into, of course, next time I record a podcast, I will, shorten my rambles. I'm not going on a tangent. I maybe have a better podcast outline that keeps me on point. And if you think, that, oh my God, I could have done this differently and it's not as you thought it would, come out, you make your work smaller and obviously, and you suddenly make your work look smaller Because obviously, the work that you have put in is less polished than the new version of yourself that exists right now. So what I mean by that is, in my case with the podcast episode, when I am done recording a podcast, I have so much more ideas how I could have made that a better podcast. So of course, right now, thinking in hindsight how I could have done it better is obviously the new version of me that didn't exist prior recording. And that tension, that, oh, this isn't good enough feeling, it is evidence of your growth. And what we usually do, and I'm curious to hear from you if you go into a shame spiral. Because I sometimes go into, my goodness, that was really not good. Oh my God, people might think that I'm an idiot trying to put podcast episodes out there and then they are so not good. And your post-creation discomfort, as I call it, is your higher awareness, checking in with yourself. It's like, you have evolved since you made this. And here's what your newer version has noticed. It's like comparing a painting you finished yesterday to the vision you have in mind today. The painting hasn't changed, but you have. And here's the difference between those who keep growing and those who quit. The ones who grow ship that anyway. They put it out there. Even if they know there are minimum 10-20 points for how I could make that better. The people who grow recognize that the act of putting it out there fuels more growth than our perfectionism ever will. Because we will never finish if we start polishing things. And also, what I noticed, if I re-record a podcast episode, it might turn out better. It might be landing better. But what it does to my creative spirit, it's actually limiting it. It sends the message to myself, I don't trust my growth. I don't trust myself holding things like when I'm still new to things. And it also, due to me not trusting, it just limits my spirit. And I know that it feels heavier and more draining to record a podcast episode, because what if the next time I come off a recording and I'm like, okay, oh my God, I think I ramble, or maybe all those, it's always the same anyway, right? So what then? Am I going to record every podcast episode twice? I mean, that is so much effort, time, and energy that goes into this, and I can't afford that. And then again, it's not about perfection. It is about the growth and holding myself to my standard that I have and gain every time I finish a project, knowing what I could do better. And instead of having that limit me and then say, I'm not going to publish it because I would just be ashamed of it, I publish it, hold myself in a discomfort, and I know that by doing this more often, I'll just get better. And now I want to go a little bit into the difference between intuition and your inner critic, because I feel that sometimes that's not very clear. For most of us, actually, I'd say, we are sometimes a little bit confused, can't discern whether it's intuition speaking to us or our inner critic trying to pick up a fight with us. So intuition to me feels very clear and moves me forward. My inner critic, on the other hand, that feels like tight. It feels tight in my body. It's like this, it keeps me kind of stuck. I am not reflecting and think of the improvements that I want to incorporate next time. It actually just spirals with the same, like it's good enough, like all the same garbage. And also the tone is loud, anxious, it's looping, right? It's like the same thoughts and thinking all over again. And the language, it's like, my intuition says, well, this could be refined. That's true. My inner critic says, well, this is garbage. I mean, come on, think about it. How can your creation be garbage? I don't think any artist, anyone who has ever created anything or designed a product or built a product or built anything in this world had their first version be the perfection, be the one product. Everything goes according to upgrades, right? This is the first thing. The first version looks like this and version 10 is just different. My podcast 30 is different than my podcast episode 300. There will be day and night, mountain and valley in between. And what I noticed when I went into my podcast episode, I was like, there was a mix between intuition and my inner critic. My inner critic was obviously very loud. It's really sad that what I produced was garbage in the end. But then when I really grounded myself and asked myself in a calm way and connected to my higher self, the thing that came was, well, you could edit a few things. The ending was clearly and factually speaking not good. I noticed that I went into rambling. I wasn't focused. I didn't know how to end it properly. So I just rambled. Instead of taking a break, hit pause, collecting myself, maybe take a sip of water, thinking what is the last thing I want to say. Because if you do freestyle without like a script, you sometimes can go into, I don't even know how I'm ending this here. So I made it unnecessarily long. And I also noticed that I wanted to bring in some statistics. Not to prove that what I'm saying is true, but I know some of you like to have some figures underlining what I'm here to say. And not only you, I also like it. I'm not like only for statistics, but I like a good mix of it. And having that all like reflected upon, it was clear that my intuition said, you're gonna publish this, but if you want, you can edit the ending. So I did it. I edited the end of my podcast. I re-recorded the end that I felt was more appropriate. I added in one or two statistics, and then I was like, and now I'm proud. Now it's good to go. So I can do that. I can edit my podcast without obviously editing for hours. It took me maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes to edit the podcast and like re-record the partial end. And I'm so happy with it. I uploaded it to the podcast platform and I'm gonna hit publish today or tomorrow. So that is how I actually, went about it. And I now want to dive into the differentiation between discernment versus perfectionism, because the discernment improves your work. So once I went into a clearer, grounded energy today in the morning and like stopped listening to my inner critic, I found out that, well, when I edit those few parts that factually speaking were not good, it's good to be published. But your perfectionism prevents even the editing. It feels like, no, I have to redo everything. I need to go into the outline. I have to edit this or add that point. And this is absolutely crazy because the perfectionism is actually the antidote to your flow and to your creation. And research from Canva's Creator Report says that 42% of creatives, 42%, that's almost half, never publish projects they start. I mean, isn't that insane? And I don't even think it's insane because thinking back over my past years, there were a lot of things I have started and have not finished. And maybe you, when you reflect back, maybe like the past 1, 2, or 3 years, what are some of the projects, or sometimes it's not a project. Maybe it's you started a course or you wanted to complete a certification And very often we don't bring this to completion. And what Canva Creator Report found out, that those creatives that they have researched who never publish anything that they started, that's not because they are lazy. But listen to this, it is so important. Because they can't tolerate the feeling that their work isn't perfectly finished yet. And I feel like this is a big heartbreak of your soul. And today I decided that my perfectionism, my inner critic, will not prevent me from starting something and then not bringing it to completion. And the problem with perfectionism is that sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, I have high standards. And most probably you have really high standards and very high expectations. But you know what's underneath this? Because I have that with my clients too. They say, oh, I have high standards. I want to adhere to a certain level. But underneath is fear. Because discernment says, I will tweak this and that, and then I publish it or post it. The perfectionism says, no, this is not ready yet. I have to re-record it. I have to do it again. The discernment is where you start to go back to your trust in yourself. Because obviously editing a few things that doesn't take and consume a lot of time is great. But then this redo the whole thing, is that really necessary? So here is the discernment, right? So it is important that you know if perfectionism if fear is kicking in, or if factually speaking, yeah, I could do things, I could tighten a few things, I can re-say certain things or rewrite certain things. And the most important thing is you get it done without the extra amount of hours of work. Because again, I can say I will re-edit my podcast and do this for 20 hours. And then I have lost so much time, momentum, and joy doing so. So I think you get the message, how you can actually differentiate between discernment and perfectionism. And here are a few things that I asked myself before, I made the decision whether I'm redoing the podcast or I'm re-editing things. If my goal was to practice courage and grow, but not perfection, would I still publish this podcast? And the answer was clear. It was a clear yes. Because you as my listener, you don't need my perfection. You are actually repelled by it. You can feel that there is so much tension and trying so hard. And what you want from me is me being real. It's me making mistakes, using filler words, saying, have a few seconds of a pause because I'm collecting my thoughts, not editing that out. And you also want to hear what growth sounds in real time. Because if you tuned in a few episodes earlier and you hear me talking right now, you might detect that I've become better. And, your brain always wants control, but your growth needs exposure. It needs the action, even if you feel it's garbage. Because again, that is inner critic language. And you only can get better if you also finish things. And the courage, not your perfection, is the real metric that really, really, really matters. Because in the end of the day, we can get better only when we have the courage to finish and hit publish and not kind of swimming in our perfection. And I am publishing my episode, that one that I wanted to kill. And I, see that every episode is repetition and not the resume to say, okay, this is the best, that's a good podcast and that is the only thing. So I'm hitting publish anyway because imperfect work teaches you faster than perfect silence, obviously. And, you cannot edit yourself into mastery. You have to experience your way to get there, your way to get to mastery. And here's a fun stat the average podcaster, according to Buzzsprouts, which is also my platform I'm using, so an average podcaster quits after just 10 episodes. I am 30 episodes in, and I haven't quit. I was on a hiatus, but I've worked myself through. And people stop, not because they lack the talent, but because it's uncomfortable to keep creating when it feels like, when it doesn't feel good, when it feels like, everything we talked about. And the ones who make it, they keep publishing even when it's uncomfortable, even when they cringe. And that's how you build a body of work that you are immensely proud of. Because again, every imperfect episode at a time will help you to get better. So, I'm publishing, as I said, that podcast. It's imperfect. I have been rambling, but to be honest, who doesn't ramble in life? And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you saw yourself in a few things that I mentioned, and you can take a few things away from to take that into your own creation process. And I want you to choose courage every time over polish or perfection. I want you to choose the progress over perfection, and also real over ready. Because to be authentic also means you show all the flaws and mistakes because they belong into that creation process. So thanks for tuning in. If that resonated, maybe it's your reminder too, whatever you're holding back today because you think it's not good enough, it's maybe already enough to just share, publish, continue working, and continue putting yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable. So thank you for tuning in. See you next week, my love, and keep being you. Bye.